Due to schedule changes, the times of some programmes may have changed. Please refer to your local listings or alternatively log on to bbc.co.uk/schools/what's on.
Things could have been very different. Wild New World, when the land belonged to the animals, continues tomorrow at 9 on BBC Two.
This is BBC Two. Good afternoon. Time for a working lunch.
Good afternoon, welcome to Working Lunch. I'm Adrian Charles. After a big rally in New York, the outlook's suddenly sunny.
One swallow doesn't make a summer, and UK shares aren't exactly shining today. I'll be looking at whether there's real cause for optimism.
Coming up too, extended warranties, are they worth it?
Not if you buy them direct from the retailer, according to a new report. From toasters to TVs, we're wasting millions on overpriced extra cover.
Also today, what floats Bistow's boat?
I've gate-crashed a gravy tasting. It's all about keeping the Bistow brand alive.
And I'm in Essex to check out a government training scheme designed to give British workers new skills. Wonder if it includes a lawnmower driving course.
Stocks over here and over there, shot up yesterday. So are we out the woods now or what?
Well, I don't know about that, but the bulls are back in town. Also, some would have you believe. Share prices rose yesterday, and now some claim they may have spotted the return of the bull runs of previous years. Now, that's when share prices rise. Everyone is looking. Not anyone sees them yet. Yesterday, the FTSE 100 rose 190 points. That's a 5% rise. Now, share prices rose because in the US, a number of companies reported stronger than expected profit figures, boosting confidence. Now, that's very significant because since May, share prices have been falling dramatically. This is them over the past year. And look at this huge fall that we get here. Now, even given our rise, the FTSE 100 is still 18% down on this time last year. FTSE 350 and FTSE All-Share are down about 19%. Now, this rise here, this very small bit here, is what people are getting excited about. It's very small. Really what I want to do is sort of blow it up, zoom in on it. If we take a closer look at it, what you can see is we still get this big rise. It is very, very recent, this rise, and it's not clear yet whether that is sustainable or not. Now, the bulls, having made their appearance, I'm afraid, have run off. After the big rise of yesterday, the market is already taking a breather. There's a lot of company news out today. For instance, there's the news that Granada and Carlton have agreed to merge. Reuters have revealed that revenue is falling, and BT is selling a bit of the business to Vodafone. But the market, I was going to say it's quiet, but it's not really. Look, it's down all the way. BAA up, M&S up, Rolls-Royce up, ICI doing nothing at all. The rest of our widely held shares are down. Not good news. Earlier, I asked stockbroker Hilary Cook whether she thought we were beginning to see a bull run.
It would be very nice to think that we are at the beginnings or through the beginnings of the next bull run, but a bit of a dose of reality in the stock market this morning. Disappointing news after hours in America last night from Intel and Motorola, bad trading news from Reuters this morning, and that's been enough to make reality set in and realise we've got a long way to go before we're clearly through the worst, and I say a bit of profit taking in this morning.
That was Hilary Cook. Now, the stock market historian David Schwartz, there are not many stock market historians, he sort of cornered that market, I think. He's bullish about the return of the bulls. He says he thinks historical lessons show the market should now turn. Now, he thinks that for a number of reasons, including, first off, well, the economy is strong. Previous downturns like this have been associated with economic crises, which we don't have. Secondly, he says, bear markets normally run for 2 years. Well, it's now run for more than that. And thirdly, he says that when shares fall during June to September, they always rise, he says, during October to January, which is, of course, where we are now. Make of that what you will.
The other business news now. There's been a slight fall in the number of people out of work and claiming benefit. The figure for last month shows a drop of 200 people to 946,000 on the list. The figures also show the number of people in full-time employment fell by more than 90,000 between June and August, as most of the new posts created were part-time. £145 million would be spent on improving major road junctions in England to help cut traffic congestion and improve safety. The work will be carried out on the most heavily used motorways and A roads around major cities. And the government's to try out a new way of calculating housing benefit. As part of a pilot scheme, a housing allowance will be paid according to family size and local rent levels. At the moment, it's linked directly to rent levels, with 100% of the rent covered by the benefit. Campaigners on this fear it could lead to some tenants losing benefit if they don't trade down to smaller properties. A group of Muslim leaders and mortgage lenders is meeting with the Treasury this afternoon to discuss how to make it easier and cheaper for Britain's 3 million Muslims to get mortgages. The requirements of Sharia law about investment means Muslims often incur additional costs. Andrew Buxton, the former chairman of Barclays, chairs the working group. You better explain what Islam says about not being able to pay an interest or receive an interest on money saved. That's the basis of the problem, isn't it?
That is absolutely right. Sharia law says that a Muslim may not pay or receive interest. Now, that means that an Islamic mortgage has to be structured so that interest doesn't appear. And basically what happens is that the bank buys the property, then the mortgage is granted, the mortgage is repaid, and the property is then transferred back to the borrower. Now, that means that stamp duty gets charged twice. Once when the bank buys the property, and secondly later when the property is probably appreciated in value and is therefore at a higher rate, so that those costs get added to the cost of the mortgage.
Mm-hmm. It's very good of you to start this working group up, but I don't think you really need it, do you? You just legislate, surely, to just say, well, take the stamp duty away from one end of the deal, and then we can progress on that basis and everyone's happy.
Well, the Working Party identified the barriers. The Bank of England set up the Working Party because these products, these Sharia-approved products, were not appearing in the market, and there were some banks that wanted to introduce them. So the Bank of England set up the Working Party to find out why. Now, we identified that as one of the major cost problems. There are some other problems, significantly that it is not possible to use an Islamic mortgage in the right-to-buy legislation. There's now quite a lot of right-to-buy legislation, buying council houses or tenants being able to buy their freeholds. Now, you can't use an Islamic mortgage because the bank is the buyer of the property, not the tenant. And there are other problems associated with social security, that the social security legislation in the United Kingdom means that people getting into financial difficulties can be supported by payment of their mortgage interest. Now, there's no interest on an Islamic mortgage, so that rules them out getting support.
OK, you've convinced me there are lots of problems. I suppose they're not going to be solved unless banks see some sort of financial motive in changing their ways a little bit. Because, as you know, as chairman of Barclays, you don't do things out of the goodness of your heart, do you? You do things to make money out of them. So what arguments would you use with the banks and building societies in general to make more products available? Well,
the Islamic products are profitable. I mean, just because interest doesn't appear doesn't mean that they're not structured in a way to make them profitable. That there are banks in the United Kingdom which would like to introduce an Islamic product, but know that the demand would not be very great because they're simply too expensive because of the way they're structured. And that's not the bank's fault, that actually is because of UK law. So what we're asking the government to do is change the law in various ways in order to make sure that these products can be introduced and are competitive. There is actually one bank in the United Kingdom, the United Bank of Kuwait, which is actually providing this service at the moment, but they find that demand is pretty limited because the Islamic mortgages are too expensive.
The shame of it is that many Muslims are just having to go for normal mortgages because they just, they can't afford to do anything else. And it's thought about 60 to 70% of them would change over to a more sort of ethically acceptable to them form of mortgage. I mean, it'd be good were that to happen.
Yes, Loughborough University has done some research, and the Institute of Islamic Finance and Banking has also done research on this. And that shows that there are a significant number of Muslims who would prefer to take a Sharia-approved product, but who are at present taking a normal product. There is another section who are not taking a product at all because they simply will not take a normal mortgage product in this country.
I mean, I just finally want to make the point that you can't restrict any product, presumably, to Muslims. I mean, how would you prove you're a Muslim when you go and apply for it?
Oh, no.
I mean, it could well be a product that is attractive to more than just Muslims.
You're absolutely right. And in fact, in Malaysia, HSBC have a business in which they give Islamic mortgages, and they find that the Chinese community take a lot of them because they like the product. So this product, just because it's Sharia approved, is not restricted to Muslims.
OK. Thanks for your time. That's Andrew Buxton, the chairman of Barclays, chairing the working group on this. Now, how do you maintain interest in a brand that was first sold in 1908? It's a question for the bloke who has to make us buy Bisto. Simon's met him, and he's been trying the gravy.
Lunchtime at Bisto headquarters, and today it's serious.
He hates carrots.
Bisto's top talent is lining up for a tasting. They've detected a danger to their 94-year dominance of the business of gravy. There's still time, of course, for all the trimmings. Bisto has identified a threat from a competitor, and that's what this tasting is all about. It's a blind tasting. For some reason, the two gravies, Bisto and the mystery competitor, are called Edwina and John. We don't know which is which. We've got to assess them for appearance, aroma, flavour, and it's all about protecting the brand.
We want the flavour to be really meaty and beefy and be quite a strong flavour, but not too overpowering so that it doesn't overpower the meal. And in terms of aroma, you want it to smell good. I mean, when you're cooking a product in the kitchen, you want it, the overall food to actually smell really homemade and roasty.
OK, there was Edwina and John. How did they do?
John definitely outperformed Edwina by far.
And John happens to be?
Bisto.
So, relief all round. But win or lose, the tastings help with updating the recipe, also with testing new ideas. Over the years, they've branched out from the original Bisto powder to Bisto granules, and most recently, Bisto Best, gravy in a coffee jar. One man, Ian Greengrass, is charged with developing the product. Effectively, he's the new Mr. Bisto.
My job is really to be the custodian for the brand, to make sure that it remains brand leader and continues to go from strength to strength. And it's about getting new consumer understanding, finding out how consumers' eating trends are changing, and ensuring that the Bisto remains relevant to the meals that they're eating today.
So let's go for the vapour, because we know that it's inherent with the brand, and also like the smiles and kind of the spontaneity, if you will, of the kids. So let's run it and keep an eye out.
At Bisto's advertising agency, the other side of brand management, making sure that we, the gravy-eating public, never forget that Bisto exists.
So the interesting thing there is I took that campaign from like the 1918, I think it started, and reintroduced it now in the 70s, because it's just so well known. But now with
the aim with the latest ads is not to look outdated, yet make the most of being well known. So the famous Bisto kids have been abandoned, but the slogan, "Our Bisto," is being kept.
The Bisto kids clearly, are somewhat out of date, and that's why they're not in the advertising now. But the trick is really to take the best of the old and add some new spark to it. Women and families today are different, and so this board is trying to show a bit more how we might take the brand going forward. So the eating occasion is no longer everybody sitting down for a serious Sunday lunch. It's much more cafe casual style. And it's not posh food. I mean, we're still bangers and mash and those kind of things as well. We can't just, we can't elevate ourselves to be totally Jamie Oliver.
The campaign for the peak gravy season at Christmas is about to start, but here they're already planning next year's advertising, trying to match their brand with the eating habits of the nation.
People are, in terms of the way they eat, they're eating less in terms of as an overall family. Time pressures are, huge. There are more working mums, so the traditional mum stay at home who cooks the full roast for when their kids and family come home is less the case. However, traditional meals sit around sort of Sunday roasts are actually on the up.
But which gravy will grace that roast? Bisto, the market leader, or OXO, or a supermarket-owned brand? That's why the brand manager has to be always on the watch.
If you're a business studies student and you want to know more about managing a brand, Bisto or otherwise, check out the education page of our website. It's bbc.co.uk/working lunch. Don't forget there's a video available of last term's lessons. The details of that on the website, or email us for more information. working.lunch@bbc.co.uk. More markets now. Adam, you ready?
I was so fascinated by Simon's report. I was watching and I suddenly thought, it's me now. Anyway, here I am. The two big independent television companies, Granada and Carlton, have agreed to merge. Now, we knew on Friday that they were discussing the merger. And they've now officially announced that they have come to some sort of agreement. Of course, it's still going to need regulatory approval, so this is far from done, this deal. If it goes ahead, Granada will own 2/3 of the combined business. Now, both Granada and Carlton have suffered from the downturn in advertising and the media sector. That whole sector has really been sat upon. This time last year, Carlton shares were £1.64. £1.64, now £1.29. This time last year, Granada shares were... Where are they? Granada, £1.23. Now it's just 75 pence. Interesting, and no change on either of those shares today. So that shows you just how well that news was in the market already. Still staying in the media sector, Reuters, the news provider, reported a 7% fall in third quarter revenues. Market conditions for its products are bad. Now they provide a lot of the financial information sources to the city, and of course the city has not been doing well. They also say, rather worryingly, they think those market conditions are set to stay. That's not the FTSE 100, it's the demand for their product they're talking about. It's trying to cut costs dramatically. It does say there'll be more job cuts, although they've not provided any more details about how many jobs will go. Now, I've got to tell you also, Reuters hit a new low for the year this morning. They were £6.20 this time last year, now 166.5. So it just shows you how bad this sector has been. Looking elsewhere, Moss Bros, they reported a first half pre-tax loss of £3.75 million. It compares with a loss of £3.92 million the year before, so things slightly better. It says it thinks it will make a profit in the second half of the year. The shares are up 11.5%, very good going in this market. 34 pence, 3.5 pence higher. BT, it sold a 26% stake in the French mobile company Segetel to Vodafone for £2.5 billion. BT shares moving down 3%. Vodafone moving down 4% to 97 pence. Some bright sparks here. Rolls-Royce shares, not the car, the aero engines maker. This was the top FTSE 100 gainer this morning. Some strength in the engineering industry, as it does seem creeping in there, 4.8% higher. GKN up 3.4% to £2.20. FTSE 100, it's not particularly good, down 1%. But look, the smaller companies are rising. It shows you just how confused this market is at the moment.
Get paid to train your staff. Sounds like a good idea to me. Rob's looking at just such a scheme. Rob.
It's a great idea, and it's proving quite a boon for firms like this one. This is Old Forge Engineering at Ingatestone in Essex. It's a company that specialises in selling and maintaining lawnmowers. Now, the problem for firms like this with just 15 staff is that no matter how interested they are in training, it can prove expensive. Workers have to go away to do the training. There's often a loss of income as well. But under this new scheme, what happens is that the workers can be trained here in the workplace, and they'll get compensation from the government for any lost wages. Supplying lawnmowers to Buckingham Palace and Premiership football clubs is a sign of a successful business. But Old Forge engineering was also a confused one, with staff lacking basic operating skills like customer awareness and dealing with stock keeping. When Howard Enkel found himself promoted from fitter to manager, he decided something needed to be done to streamline the business, and he signed up for a new training initiative. Staff have certainly noticed the difference.
Well, it's sort of bringing us up to date, a bit more technology and stuff. It's certainly improved things from years ago when it was all pen and paper, and that was about as far as we got with it, really.
The scheme, Profit from Learning, is aimed at small companies like this. The firm has paid the cost of its employees' wages while the training takes place.
It's nice, it's going to be in-house as well, the training, which is a lot better. It's quite nice you're in your own situation, your own company, rather than going to the field as well. So it's nice, the day-to-day running is the same, and it's going to make things a lot better for us, we hope. Much, much better.
Improving the productivity of British industry and closing the gap on our rivals is a key objective of the government. It's spending £40 million on this scheme. Essex is one of 6 areas in the country chosen to pilot the project, which aims to improve the skills of 16,000 workers in the next 2 years. Well, Howard's with me now, and also Janice Logie from the Learning Skills Council here in Essex. But first of all, Howard, I mentioned that you went from being a fitter to being the manager here, and I know you're also a professional yachtsman as well. How does it all fit in?
Well, over the last couple of years, I was trying to pursue being an international dinghy racer, and obviously with the finances, I need to earn money, and that's why I came to Old Forge over the last winter period, was to earn money to sail again for this summer.
So this sudden promotion, I guess you found yourself in a position where you weren't too sure of what was going on.
Well, exactly, yeah. Once the partner, one of the partners who was the active partner, left the company, we all found ourselves as a company as a whole in quite a lot of disarray.
So you needed training. Why did you get involved in this scheme? What did it bring?
Well, we looked into training. We've been looking into it over some period, really, and it was just that it was the right kind of training. It was, free as well, government funded.
What have been the benefits then for your firm? What have you got out of it?
Certainly a refocusing, really, of the whole company as a whole. Refocusing on what we should be doing, what we should be supplying. It's been very useful for us.
OK, Janice, is this the kind of company that this sort of thing is aimed at?
Absolutely. I mean, we've been listening to our businesses who've been saying that the issues that they have are very much around the time off to training and also the cost of training, and this pilot addresses both those issues.
And what about if someone's interested in taking part in this? How can they sign up for it?
Well, they can phone our 0800 number, which is 0800 387 326, or they can go onto the web, www.profitfromlearning.co.uk.
Very well remembered. And another test, I know I mentioned this is a pilot scheme, but there are other parts of the country doing it, aren't there?
There are 5 other areas in the country doing it. They are Manchester, Birmingham and Solihull, Derbyshire, Tyne and Wear and Swindon and Wiltshire.
And what's the thinking behind it then? What's the aim of what you're trying to achieve here?
What we're trying to achieve is to support small businesses to upskill their staff, because we know the benefits of training, and it also helps productivity, hence profit from learning in our case. And as I say, we've been speaking to Howard, as you know, and all the problems that Howard has had, this pilot addresses. The pilot's only going on for a year. We're going to evaluate it at that after the year and see what we can do in terms of the longer term. So the government is looking at this for longer term policy.
Do you think this could go nationwide?
I'm not sure if it will go nationwide exactly like this until we evaluate it, but even at the local level we're learning a lot, and we know that the businesses in Essex are going to certainly benefit from what we've learned, and we'll still be working with businesses after the end of the pilot period.
And Howard, does it help you to train your staff? Does it help you to hang on to them?
Well, certainly, yeah. Staff retention has been a big problem for us, as I understand it. I mean, I've been and gone over the last few years and come back, but yeah, certainly with the staff, a complaint of not being really directed and stuff like that. But yeah, certainly staff retention is a key issue really for us.
And one thing that intrigues me is that you got by for 10 years without any of this kind of sort of training and streamlining. How did you manage?
Well, I think it's been difficult. We've done well in certain areas. We've made profits, but it hasn't been too large profits. We need to refocus, and the company as a whole does run. It's been running for a while, but it hasn't been able to put a sound base for the actual employees.
And when are you going to be sailing again?
Probably not for a couple of years now, I don't think.
No, it looks like you've got quite a busy job on your hands as well. Howard, Janice, thanks very much. Well, just before we go, we have got time to announce the winner of our What Story Shall We Do on Friday. If you might remember, I was asking, thank you very much to my glamorous assistant here. I was asking you, What story I should be covering on Friday? We had a few suggestions, and in the style of an awards ceremony, they were, if you might remember, The Collector, a firm that does collectible china and porcelain, GAW, a telephone business advice company that employs people who are over 50, and Ridley's, that's a local brewery, and the winner is... I never thought that would work actually, but it did. The winner is The Collector with a massive 47% of the vote, so we'll be seeing them on Friday, and thank you very much.
He was good at that, wasn't he? We'll be wasting £50 million in the run-up to Christmas on expensive and unnecessary warranties. The Competition Commission is already looking at these warranties after a referral from the Office of Fair Trading. Gillian's here. £50 million. It must be ludicrously overinflated, that figure. This does come from a firm of brokers who sell warranties on the cheap, so they would say this, wouldn't they?
Yes, they would.
Right. Let's not do it then. No, go on.
No, it's still worth doing because they would say that, but the OFT says that as well, the Consumers Association says that. It's not as though this message from this particular firm of brokers particularly jars with what we know from the experts. Take a listen to what the Consumers Association say, for example. They say just don't ever leap at the most obvious solution here.
I'd remind people that you don't have to buy them from the retailer that you bought the product from. You don't have to buy it there and then. You can go back at a later date. It's worth ringing the manufacturer to find out if they offer a better value product or independent insurers. If you can't be bothered to do that, ask for a discount. The chances are the salesperson will offer you a discount in the hope that you'll buy the product.
So how much can you save, potentially?
Well, this 50 million that they talk about is based on an overall market of £500 million. And it's worth remembering that a quarter of that market is, a quarter of electricals are sold between now and Christmas. That's the big sales pitch and the big sales time. And on that, they say, Warranty Direct, that you can save 38% on average. And there are a few specific examples they give. Let me show you one of the more dramatic examples, which was on a Zanussi washing machine. Here's the washer-dryer it is for £550. And they looked at how much you would pay getting the extended warranty from a retailer. And the sum there was £199. And if you got it from a broker, you would pay only £108. So you can see one there is virtually double the other. But there's quite a warning to be given here, because when I spoke to the retailers, what they said was be careful, be careful, be careful, because you're not necessarily comparing like with like. And Warranty Direct did concede that it's not a strictly like-for-like policy. For example, what the retailer includes is accidental damage and theft in theirs, and the insurer doesn't necessarily include that, which comes back to what we always say, which is do read the small print. Yeah. But in some cases, you may not need protection against theft, because most household policies, for example, will cover theft if somebody picks your washing machine up and walks off with it. You know,
That's
it's unlikely.
Have you ever tried to pick up a washing machine?
I haven't actually, funnily enough.
Well,
but
don't try it. Is it worth shopping around anyway? Because isn't there an argument for not having a warranty at all? Because what I always say to them, they offer me one, I don't want it to break down. Don't sell me a machine that's going to break down in 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of criticism of the retailers in terms of inflating the risk. You know, they will say to you, oh, but madam or sir, you know, do be careful because we'll protect you for 5 years and the chances are, etc., etc. But take a look at the overall statistics. These are from the Consumers Association for a range of different products. And what they looked at, they asked 4,000 people, has your product been faulty within the last 6 years? I mean, phenomenal statistics. Answering machine, 96% of them were not faulty, so only 4% were actually faulty. If you carry on and look at a television, for example, there 87% were faulty, and out of, I think it was 15 or 20 products, the lowest was a washing machine, and even there 79% of them are not faulty within 6 years, not 5 years. So, you know, very unlikely at the end of the day that you would need a warranty. So one of the things you should probably look for when you're looking at the small print, if you want to buy one of these things, is will they give the money back, because some of them actually will give you the money back if you don't make any claim at all during the warranty period. But again, you have to be terribly careful about the time constraints, because, you know, there are 30 days to get your form in the first place, and then there's possibly another 30 days to get your form in after the 5 years are up. And who on earth remembers to do that 5 years later? I'm not sure.
So they're still going for the hard sell, though. So, I mean, don't buy a warranty on the spot.
No, definitely don't buy a warranty on the spot, and do beware. I mean, there's been some research done which has shown that very frequently the retailer makes more money on the extended warranty than they do on the product themselves. And we know that very often the salespeople are well rewarded in terms of commission. And that's why that hard sell happens. And the OFT is not happy about that at all.
So what could the Competition Commission do now?
Well, they are looking at it and will come back to us next summer. Unfortunately, the whole thing, as we all know, is a very long and protracted process. But they could get quite heavy-handed. You know, there could be fines at the end of the day for the companies. And the companies themselves were very worried indeed when this came out in the summertime and when the OFT said they were passing it on to the Competition Commission. So my guess is they will clamp down quite strongly and say voluntary code is no good whatsoever. We're going to have a fixed code that people will have to adhere to.
OK, Gillian, thanks for that. Don't forget any useful numbers, addresses or whatnot we've mentioned on the show. You'll find them on our CFAX page. That's BBC CFAX page 238. Check out our programme website at bbc.co.uk/workinglunch. On Consumer Issues on Friday, the Pensions Oracle, Malcolm McLean, will be here to answer your questions. The week after that will be savings and investments. Any questions on those or anything else you want to know, you can write to us at Working Lunch, room 4220, BBC TV Centre, London, W12 7RJ. Fax us on 020 8576 8799. Email us at working.lunch@bbc.co.uk. That's all from Working Lunch to today. We're back tomorrow and Friday at the later time of 1:30 because the golf, I think, we're being put back. Let's have a quick look at the FTSE before we go. So much for the bull run. We're down nearly 1.5% today, so we'll see what happens in the States. Have a nice day. Bye.
If you receive digital TV through an aerial, you need to retune your equipment due to changes and improvements to the channel lineup over the next few weeks. If you need help, visit our website at bbc.co.uk/digital or phone 08708 800280. Calls are charged at national rate. Digital satellite and cable are not affected.
Your pupils dilate. Blood rushes to your head.
My instincts were to get even.
Your heart rate accelerates. You start to sweat. Who's in control? You or your instincts? Join me on an amazing journey to find out why we do what we do.
Human Instinct, next Wednesday at 9 on BBC One.
You'll never look at yourself in the same way again.
This is BBC Two, now Lifeline.
Hello, we start with this month's Lifeline appeal, which is made by Toya Wilcox.
Regan was taken into care aged 11. By the time she left care 4 years ago, she'd lived in 50 different children's homes.
Living in care was very difficult. Then when I left care, it got harder. I had to act like an adult straight away. There was no help or support there to show me what to do. It was just me, and that was really hard. Loneliness was maybe the hardest thing.
Stephen was taken into care aged 6 after his mother died. He lived in 26 children's homes. He now lives alone in a council flat.
Coming out of care is so hard because you ain't got no support, you're confused, lonely, and especially if you ain't got any friends, you don't know who you really are.
What Regan and Stephen describe is how too many young people feel when they leave care. It's shocking, isn't it? To feel so alone at such a young age. But many care leavers are alone, fending for themselves in an adult world without the love and family support most of us take for granted. No home to go back to when things go wrong, and no one to turn to when your money runs out.